Okay, camera's rolling.
Okay. How far down would you like us to go?
The whole property is up, it's fair game. We can go anywhere and
Okay.
everywhere. Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow. This is fantastic. Now, I'm not an expert on anything, okay? We learn something new every day about nature, so it's a constant. But the first thing that happened here when we came in just now and we're down below, you had 3 insect eaters up there eating at the middle of the day. Now that's really strange. Normally the mosquitoes would be getting us while we're here, okay? But because of the late spring, that's not happening this year. But we saw the nighthawk, we saw the barn swallow, and then we saw the chimney swifts. Now the chimney swifts go all the way to Peru during the wintertime, and then they come back up here. So we're doing a study because the chimney swifts have dropped 50% of their population in not too many years. And one of the reasons is that we're taking down all of our chimneys. The big chimneys go as we evolve. Okay, so that was an interesting observation. The other one was you had cabbage butterflies, sulfur butterflies down in the alfalfa field. And some of those migrate, so they could have been migrators from the south. They shouldn't have, they probably were not hatched here this spring. It's too early yet. So there are neat things going on down there. But this area right here has been explored. First of all, the Native Americans were here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And they left some of their spear points that were lost, and we find clay shards and that kind of thing closer to Le Sueur. But following those folk, then came the French explorers. And one of the first Frenchmen into the area was Pierre Charles Le Sueur. He came up the river in the 1700s. And the river was the road, the highway of today, which the Native Americans used all the time. But this piece of pipe right here was created in China prior to 1838. It got into the area around 1838. It probably came down from Canada. And we happened to come across a dozen of these pipes on the Minnesota River sandbar. And most of them are very ornate, with decorations around the edges and that kind of thing. But when you look at an object like that, and know it goes back to prior to 1838, it begins to make you look or feel, a little bit insignificant, or at least that we are. So then, your history will tell you that the folk who came into this area after the Native American treaties and conflicts and this kind of thing, settled. One of the settlements was right down at Blakely, okay, across the road. And the first Catholic church is right down the road, about 1 mile and 8/10, or maybe 2 miles, okay? So there have been folks around here for a long time of many nationalities. The French came up, the Bisons were here, the Irish moved down into that area over there because a lot of the country out there looks like Ireland with bogs and potholes and that kind of thing. So this is a part of the big woods, they call it, if you've done that in your college studies. It's probably been logged off pretty much at least once and twice. And that's indicated by the kind of foliage that you have here. So it's a very historic spot and a historic moment to be up here, because you wanted to get away from the river if you were a settler. In the old days, it didn't flood nearly as much as it does today. This is so unusual. We've had 2 years without a spring flood. Makes you lonesome for water. Ha, ha. Those of you who live in the area know that you are unable to get from where we are right now below the hill into Henderson because the water is up that high. For you to tell someone that, they won't believe you. That's what our floods are like. But there are people who don't believe in evolution, but we are evolving. Who would have thought 10 years ago you would have had people standing here right now in those two little trinkets that you have over there?
It's crazy.
It's a period of involvement.
Right, yeah.
You know, so your hope is that when they do get here and see those cumulus clouds and see these trees and that whole bit, that they will be brought kind of back to the earth from which we came. We've gotten so far from the earth. So I'm doing all the talking. What's your interest?
Interest? You mean just in general, or what?
Do you have questions? If there was someone here,
yeah.
what kind of a question would they ask of you, do you think?
What kind of trees are these?
Well, you have a lot of hickory in here, and that's interesting because about 30 years ago, the hickory trees were all wiped out by a fungus, and now they're returning. And so you have hickory here, you have the old faithful ironwood, and you have elm, and you have ash.
Point out an elm to me. Where's an elm?
Okay, the dead trees that are to your right when you're down below. If you're like Adam, if you're a mushroom hunter,
Yeah.
and you're looking for it, you only have a little period of time. Head for those elms that are dead.
Okay.
That's-
Dead
Is
elms.
that where you want to go on? So
Yeah, yeah.
Is that where they grow?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
That's the peak. The other is the poplar tree is another spot. You can sometimes go into a prickly ash area, and you'll find some nice mushrooms under there. But it has to do with the coming together of enough moisture and the ground being warm. So the morel mushrooms are about 2 weeks late. Wouldn't you agree to that? Right?
Yeah.
And of course, at this stage, where I am not so protective of my morels, I'll tell you all the little secrets. Do you see any oaks about?
Oaks.
Oak trees?
We've got a couple on the far side of the property.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Not too much on this side. They're mostly over there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got a white oak and a couple red oaks.
Okay. And then this tree right here. That's like a banquet hall for the birds. That's an eastern red cedar. And in the fall, it has, that's not very, doesn't give up much over. In the fall, it's usually loaded by red cedar berries. And so a lot of,
blue ones?
yeah,
Okay.
very good, you betcha. And not every year, but it's a banquet for the birds. Because when they come back from migration in the springtime, those berries will still be there. And that might be the lifesaver for migrating birds. So we call that the motel or the hotel for migrating birds, the eastern red cedars. They'll take over everything in the forest. If you let them go, they'll eat up the whole forest. The other thing to note is when the folks came in and settled, they took over every little field that would be a top like this, and so you've got fields secreted away. Not many acres, but this was enough acreage right here to feed a family that we're looking out on right now. Another evolution is down in the bottoms. The folks who lived on top of the hill often owned a bit of property in the bottoms, and that was used for haying. But now, because of the floods almost every year, now we have willows upon willows and willows. And then you know that the National Wildlife Refuge has taken over, the Bloomington Refuge has taken over lots and lots of the valley. So it gives more opportunity for people to hunt. On the other hand, the people that used to hunt there kind of squeezed out. So there's always that kind of a conflict. You're in my hunting area. I've hunted here for 100 years. What are you doing here now? You're a stranger from the cities, but it's public property now. So there's conflict in the valley between snowmobilers and the people who like it kept,
Pristine.
Close
to it. Yeah. Nice.
So
Yeah, that was great. Let's see. Would there be any more to talk about if we kind of drifted down in here a little bit, or we could go maybe to the tower or to the bridge?
why don't we go to the tower,
Sure.
if that's okay?
Yeah.
But it would appear as though this has been logged off
Logged on.
at least twice.
The whole like
Uh-huh.
hill,
Hmm.
like everywhere.
Except down below where you see those more mature trees, probably just one time. There is an interesting plant here. I love this little plant. This has 4 different names. One of them is dog tooth violet, and I don't see any little white flowers, but the name I like best and the kids like best is this one. What do I look like when I do
Frog
that?
or something, or
Keep going.
frog.
Snake.
Snake.
Snake,
Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
are good. And so another name is adder's tongue. The snake, the adder. In the forest nursery woods, there is a dwarf of these, heavily protected, and had to do with the number of them that were dug out and taken away. But it's the, I'll think of it later, it starts with a T. So anyhow, the surprise here is that you don't have more spring ephemerals. An ephemeral is the flowers that are blossoming right now, early, and they'll be out for about 3 weeks, and then they're gone. You won't see them again until next spring. So the roots, the bulbs, all of that is still there, but during the summertime, they'll be gone. The ephemerals. Here. So,
Yeah, I think that's great for here. You guys would you like to go to the tower?
you have something to add?
Do you guys have any questions? Is anything that you're seeing that you would like to know something about? What kind of birds are we hearing right
We
now?
aren't,
Okay.
unless you're hearing something that I'm not.
I'm hearing something, but
Okay.
I don't have the ear.
See, with
for
this bad ear,
it. Sure. Okay.
what's it sounding like?
I was gonna. It's
A
like
very happy
sort
bird.
of like kind of like a pulse, like a.
See, cardinal is not calling. Ah, let's see, rose-breasted grosbeak. Is it kind of a rolling sound?
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you get to see them.
Hang on.
What is it called?
Rose-breasted grosbeak. Grosbeak, thick beak. And you'll see that here all summer. Okay? And a rose, like your T, and then some white and some black. But if it's a rolling sound, and that's one that you will see. This is not a good time of day to hear the bird calls. But
When is the best time?
early morning, when they get up, and in the evening when they're going to bed, is the best time to come in. Noontime, they're pretty silent for the most part. Resting, because they got up too early or stayed up too late the night before. I lost my little pipe.
Oh, I've got it. I'm trying to take it home with me. There you go.
Good. Here's the fun thing about this. We take the kids down to the Minnesota River on the sandbars. And my wife has been an elementary teacher for 100 years or so. She even had Adam. You had Barbara, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
First grade.
Okay, so we take him to the sandbar and then on our property, and then we say, now you can have anything you find on the property is yours. So they go scurrying out, and a number of years ago, a little wiggler came up with a pipe.
Nice.
Well, oh, your word is your word. And so the kid got to take home the pipe.
The pipe.
We went back the next day, and every year from there on in, we would find 1 or 2 of the kaolin clay pipes. But our best one has 13 little stars around the edge,
Really?
and a TD, which has to do with the trading company, and another little dealie here that has 13 on it. So you know that it was being traded about the time of the 13 original colonies.
Wow.
You know. So along came the Minnesota Archaeological Society, and they said, you will turn over. We hear you have some clay pipes going back before 1838. You will turn them over. They are property of the state. You found them in the Minnesota River. And the rule is the landowner owns to the water's edge. So I wrote him a letter back saying, I pay taxes to the water's edge. If you want these, I'll throw them back in the river. But they've been such an educational tool since then that they haven't bugged us lately. So anything else.
Go plunge into the water.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yep.
No, that's,
absolutely beautiful. Now, have you done, or your people done, a lot of clearing in this area, or is this pretty much the way it was?
well, no, I took a weed eater to this whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Hey, special tree, holy cow,
which one?
right here. See, there's a benefit to sunglasses and there's a benefit to not having sunglasses. This is a Kentucky coffee bean tree. So is that one, so is that one, and so is this one. You see this? Now, when we settlers came here, there were very few of these, but they were used by if any of you have studied the games of other countries, there is a game that's kind of a rectangular board with about 4 pockets here, 4 pockets here, 4 pockets here. In each of those Aborigine countries, you'll find that board and you'll find a plant that you can use as pegs or whatever you want to use them. Well, this yields, maybe we'll see it before we finish. The Kentucky coffee bean, it looks like about the size of my finger, okay? And as the Native Americans of a particular group brought this game along to play, they dropped the beans. So the beans have extended up into Minnesota. So we had a telephone call from the University of Iowa, and they wanted our coffee beans from our property. And I said, how did you discover, we have property right across the river. How did you discover us? They said, well, from the air. And now I'm thinking, we like to run around the woods without any clothes on. And how did they discover us? When did they discover us? So they came up and they got, this is no bull. They came up and got the beans, and they took half of them back to be put in a cave for when we wipe ourselves out. They'll have the Kentucky coffee bean and other vegetation to start over again. Now that sounds macabre, but it's in various parts of the country.
What do those seeds look like?
They're a little black seed. I sure hope we
Dark?
find one. Yep.
And then they kind of have the little round spot on them.
Mm-hmm.
We have a game with that.
Ah,
The women have a game,
okay.
and that's what they do. They shake it. They have a bowl and they shake it. And then when they shake it, and the way they land, there's certain ways that they land. The women, it's a women's game for us. So the men don't know how to play it. I've just seen them play because
Yes.
when a female passes away, that's what game the women play.
Wow.
And then they'll play that, but all the women, the older women, they know all the point systems. So when they shake it and they see what's out there, then they'll tell you what you won. You know, kind of like Yahtzee. It's the luck of how them seeds land.
Adam, if we don't find any of those seeds today, I'm going to get them to you. Because here's the other part. Everything leads to something else. Like you just led to where we needed to be with this, to one of the places. The deer eat the seed pods. Wherever deer bed down, they will leave in their manure the seeds. And so it's a natural thing for the deer to be on this ridge pooping, and here you've got the trees. The other thing about them is the white folk used the beans and ground them as a form of coffee, Kentucky coffee beans. But you have to cook them to 180 degrees before you grind them, otherwise they're poison for you. The other thing, yep, look it up. The other neat thing is, if you find a little stream where there are fish and a little eddy, they would drop the beans, a handful of the beans, into the eddy, and the fish would be paralyzed and come to the top. Anyhow, the Kentucky coffee bean can lead you all kinds of places, but the wood is a rich, beautiful wood that we didn't know was there. And Mr. and Mrs. down the road have made model steamboats, Minnesota River steamboats, and we have them in our museum in Henderson, out of this marvelous, rich-looking, beautiful wood. Looks like maple.
Are they dead?
No, they are the latest ones to, the leaves emerge in the springtime, okay? And then the pods won't fall until February, the pods that they form. And of course, it's only the female tree. So this could be a whole bunch of male trees. You won't know until you're back in the fall and see the Bananas. They grow in a banana. Hmm?
It's similar to a cupola tree then?
What's that?
Cupola tree? Is that a cupola?
Related to the catalpa.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good. We're burning up your time.
Sure. Well, let's take it down to the tower
Good.
somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't catch your first name.
What's that?
I didn't catch your first name.
My name's Moses.
Moses. Good to meet you, Everhart. Thank you. I heard.
I'm from the Ho-Chunk Nation from Wisconsin.
Okay.
Kevin's my brother. He works here. He's worked here last year.
Okay. Well, you know more about this than I do. Very good.
I'll jump in over here.
Here you go.
There you are.
Watch your butt. It's warm.
A little toasty.
That knoll right over there, when it's plowed up,
Yeah.
it's an obvious place.
For
Arrowheads.
For what?
Arrowheads.